Today's topic, financial planning for doctors in 5 easy steps. You are not going to be able to build a full financial plan in this one short video, but I am going to provide you with 5 really good tips that should be intertwined in your current financial plan and hopefully accounted for. I hope that you can walk through all 5 of these and put a little check mark beside it. So we're going to walk through 5 very important topics that all physicians should be keeping in mind for their financial plan. Stay tuned because all 5 are coming up next. First up, the emergency fund for a physician. This can go a few different ways. The first one I'd say, if you're still in training, if you're a resident, if you're a fellow, having a couple $1,000s, whether that's $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000, if you have more, good for you. That's huge. It's a huge victory, and not all of your colleagues can say that. So take that as really part 1 here. Part 2 would be thinking of more of our attending physicians. And usually this comes in 2 different levels where we always like to see a certain amount in cash. You know, for us, we usually put a minimum level of like $20,000 seems to stick really well. And we will let our clients dictate that though. Maybe they want to do a little bit more. Maybe they like 50, maybe they like 100. Maybe there is a number that they want to use that's specific to them because it's just their feel-good number, right? And we're okay with that. Some other guidelines that we like to present based on situations can be anything up to 3 months of gross income, 4 to 5 months of gross income, or 6 months or more of gross income. That's usually more for our practice owners, or if you have pay that's really reliant on RVUs where that income can fluctuate. So those are all important demographics. We have better context for that as well in our blog post. So down in the show notes, we'll have some better context there. And we also will build our emergency funds in 2 levels, meaning, again, that cash flow that I just noted, but also level 2 would be maybe we start to add in a more conservative investment portfolio. So understanding that it's there for liquidity if we need it, but ideally we won't have to get to it. So it's kind of like our middle ground where we say it's not as straightforward as cash. It's not as aggressive as our retirement accounts or our Roth IRAs, but it's right there in the middle. Usually we're doing this inside of a taxable account, whether that's a taxable account in your name or if that's a joint account with your spouse. That's usually how we're building that in layers. So the number can vary. That's not the important part. The important part is finding a number that matches up to your needs, but also matches some of the overall general guidelines on having a good cash reserve for not only yourself, but also your family. Step 2 in a strong financial plan for a physician would be just eliminating debt. Now, this does not mean you go get crazy and you go pay off all your student loans tomorrow and your mortgage tomorrow. Usually in this example, we're more referring to any type of bad debt. For most physicians, this would likely be maybe a bad car loan, maybe where the rate is high, or maybe bought too fancy of a car, or you didn't come in here and probably at the top of that, you put credit cards. The reason why we don't get too crazy with mortgages or student loans are, 1, student loans, if you're going for public service loan forgiveness, you do not get any good citizen awards for paying extra on those loans, right? Pay the minimum, get your PSLF, and move on. And on your mortgage, it can always depend. We have this conversation with our clients quite a bit. If your rate is low, do we get as aggressive with it? Maybe not, but maybe that's a personal goal of yours. Maybe we want to get out of the way. So we talk through that. If your rate is higher, luckily in the current environment where we don't see that, now rates are starting to tick up a little bit more now, so that could come back into the conversation. So those are usually what we consider forms of good debt. You can even consider a business loan in here. If you bought into your practice or if you bought into the surgery center per se, those are also loans that we consider that good debt because ideally you're taking on the debt in hopes of growing forward. You know, whether that's a mortgage, as you need a home to live in, whether that was student loans to allow you to become a physician, or practice loans because it allowed you to buy into something bigger. And again, on the practice side, maybe it's on the real estate side of the practice, maybe it's on the surgery center on the side. But the key here is that if you do have bad debt, we do want to be more aggressive with that. And we're really looking more towards any type of credit card debt. We don't really see payday loans anymore, luckily. But if you have any of those, we'd also put those high on the list. And the other one that would come in there would be car loans. But even car loans can depend on that rate. And today we see people stretching car loans out 70 months and crazy things like that, which we do not think that is a good idea. So in those examples, we might even pick up and be a little bit more aggressive on the car loan. So number 2, just have a good plan in place to remove debt. And if it's bad debt, just be prepared to possibly be even a little bit more aggressive on that to get it out of your way and clear your path going forward. Step number 3, maximize your employer benefits. Some of these are always top of mind, right? Hopefully you're taking advantage of your employer 401k. And sure, you have the health insurance, but have you read through all the details, right? Do they have some type of education assistance, whether maybe that's for you to take some form of continued education, or maybe that's even for your kids. We see that quite a bit in academic medicine where they'll say, hey, we'll cover up to 50% or 75% of your tuition if they attend this university. That's the little details that go a long way, but even such such things as like commuter benefits, right? Are you in the city? Do you take the subway to work every day? You might be able to pay for your commuter benefits on a pre-tax basis. Does a high deductible health plan make sense, where now we can utilize something called an HSA, a health savings account? Maybe we're looking at an FSA, a flexible spending account, whether that's on dependent care or on the child care side. And again, top of mind should always be, what are the retirement plan options? Are you getting the full match? Do they have a 403B? Do they have a 457B plan? Is it a government plan or is it a non-government plan? Do they allow any other type of retirement plans in there? Academic medicine in particular is very common to have more than one plan that you can save to. What's their life insurance look like? What's the disability insurance look like? What's the health insurance look like? So just make sure that you are going through and maximizing their employment benefits. And most of all, look at it every year. It seems like it's always a set and forget it, where you get it set up in one year, but then you think it's just perfect for the rest of the years. But it's not uncommon for them to add some benefits, or maybe even tweak benefits. Maybe they lowered something and now we need to increase your private disability because they lowered your group disability. So make sure year in and year out, you're maximizing those employer benefits because they're part of your salary package, right? It's part of your compensation package. And those are important benefits that you should be reviewing and taking advantage of year in and year out. Number 4, budgets are boring, but they are vital. I also think that budgeting is even more vital earlier on in your career. I think the most important phase is actually while you're still in training, because if you can truly build that idea of, continue to live like a resident for a few years into your attending status, you're likely going to get a huge jump start in the long-term financial planning phase here. So budgeting is important for all phases, and budgeting does not have to be this painful exercise. It could be something that you make into a fun date night with your spouse or significant other, whether that's something you're doing at home and maybe you're ordering takeout, maybe you're going out on a date night, but you're reviewing some things there. You can make it as exciting as you can make budgeting. And I chuckle there because you're probably thinking budgeting can't be that exciting, but it can be. And just a good check-in is always a good thing. And just knowing where your money goes. We have a free budgeting template in the actual blog below. So just, again, scoot down to those show notes. We're pretty big fans of the 50-30-20 rule, where 50% of that is going towards your living expenses, 30% is towards those lifestyle, and then 20% is going to savings, which we'll also cover that a little bit more here in a second. But, I think the 50-30 rule at a high level is very good. Sometimes that number can change. I would say with academic physicians, sometimes like housing can get out of whack because we're probably in a larger major metropolitan area. So that can have an effect on things. But for the most part, those are good guidelines. But the key takeaway here from number 4 is just make sure that you're budgeting in some capacity. It doesn't need to be a weekly thing. Maybe it's a monthly thing. Maybe it's a quarterly thing. Heck, if you even did it annually, I would still be proud of you. But make sure that reviewing a budget and just talking about money, whether that's a sit-down meeting by yourself or again with your spouse or significant other, I think those are all very important habits to create. And the sooner you create them, better, but they should also transfer with you for the rest of your life. Step 5, save 15 to 20% of your income. Now, based on my last note, step number 4, right, we're going to lean more toward 20% here. The reason why I usually lean more towards a higher number, some would say 15 is higher than what the Google search would say. I even like to go up to 20. And most of this is because physicians just get a little bit later start. So with that later start, the biggest tool we have in the world of personal finance and investing in particular is just time, which is created from compounding interest, is where we get the biggest bang for our buck, right? So that's where I would sometimes lean towards that 15 or 20%. I think those are good targets to have. If you're doing 20%, you will likely, as an attending physician, you likely need to do more than just your employer plan. You're likely going to start to add in a backdoor Roth IRA. Even after that backdoor Roth IRA, you likely still have to get to a taxable account in some capacity. Those are the 3 buckets that we usually start with. Are there other ways to save? There certainly are, but I think those are the 3 cleanest and most straightforward that you can always utilize, and they're easily at your disposal. But the key here is just hit that savings number. And once again, the sooner you can hit this, the better for both compounding interest, but it also sets that standard for you going forward. So if you're doing it while you're in residency or fellowship, which again, I realize that could be a tough number to hit early on there, but as soon as you become an attending, right, that first big kid paycheck, you're hitting this number. And then you can take that with you for the rest of your career. And keep in mind, this 15 to 20 is a general guidance. If you say you're happy working till 82, maybe you don't have to do as much. If you tell me you want to stop working at 50 or be financially independent by 50, we probably have to crank that number up a little bit. So again, the goal here is to give you 5 general topics that hopefully are at a minimum in your plan, but it might have to be customized based on what your goals are as well. But for this one in particular, step number 5, goal is to be saving at least 15 to 20% of your income. And in particular, we're saving this for retire. So if you're also cranking money away for just your home purchase, for another short-term goal or a big time vacation, I would not include that in this 15 to 20. This 15 to 20 should be more leaning towards your retirement. The other thing I would not include here is like 529 plans for our kids. That is not going to benefit you in your retirement retirement per se. It's going to benefit them for their education. Now, it should help you with cash flow if you're going to pay that out. But anyway, that's another topic for another day. Key here is 15 to 20%. Make sure you're hitting that savings number, maybe even more. And there you have it. Financial planning for doctors in 5 easy steps. As I noted at the start, it is not a 5-step financial plan. These are things that should be embedded in your financial plan. Your financial plan is going to have a lot more moving parts than just those 5. But they should give you 5 very important topics to make sure that you are hitting, whether that's for the emergency fund, whether that's your savings number, whether that's paying off the debt. You're just making sure that you're walking through those 5 steps and that they are being accounted for in your current financial plan or as you start to build your financial plan going forward. So we hope you enjoyed those. If you have not subscribed, now would be a great time to subscribe to the channel. You can do that right here. If you click on the little bell icon right there, that'll also give you a notification every time we're sending out new content. Thank you as always for hanging out with me. And as always, we'll catch you on the next video.